Hello friends, this is Jon McNaughton. Welcome to my painting studio. Today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to share with you a painting I'm actually working on. I'm going to talk about some of what I do in the early stages and why I'm painting this image, and you might find it interesting. So this is the drawing that I've done of Lincoln praying. And, it's very simple at this stage. I just draw out the shapes and the placement. It doesn't give you very much of a sense of where it's going. But from this, I'll trace it onto my board. And here you can see where I've actually done the underpainting for my picture of Lincoln praying. None of the color has been put in yet. I use this raw umber paint. And this is kind of an old master's method that I use with a lot of my paintings, where I'll lay it all in the tones with the brown burnt raw umber color to begin with, and then I'll start laying on the color. And if you haven't noticed, I paint a lot of somewhat controversial subjects. And who would think that Abraham Lincoln would be a controversial figure? But he is. Probably for a lot of the same reasons that somebody like Donald Trump is very controversial. He lived at a time where there was a lot of division with the different politics. He ran on an abolitionist platform. And it's interesting because, Trump, in a way, his platform was to build the wall. It's been a very divisive topic. And Lincoln had to make a lot of tough decisions, and history has been kind to him until recently. He's considered one of our most popular and greatest presidents because he emancipated the slaves. And, if it hadn't been for that particular act, he probably would have gone down in history as one of our worst presidents. We had over 600,000 Americans died in the Civil War, more than any other war. And there were things that Lincoln did that were considered unconstitutional, like he suspended habeas corpus and things that they did to the South to win the war, mostly political. But in the end, Lincoln, he was a very strong president, and he's remembered as saving the Union and so forth. But besides that, one of the controversial things about this painting, obviously, is to show this side of Lincoln praying. There's a lot of people that believe that he was a godless man, that he was not a Christian, and I beg to differ. And I've done some research on this, and he wasn't your typical Christian. Although he was born and raised in a very religious family, he grew up Baptist. He was a skeptic as a young man. He ridiculed different revivalists that were in the area where he lived in Indiana. He was a little bit skeptical of religion as a whole, but he was very private about his religious beliefs. But if you really read the things that Lincoln has said about Christianity and religion and God, I believe that he was a very religious person. And I find it interesting, for example, that during the White House years, he attended a New York Avenue Presbyterian church where they rented a pew the whole time he was there. And even in his first inaugural address, he said, I got this written down here, intelligence, patriotism, Christianity, and a firm reliance on him who has never forsaken this favored land are still competent to adjust in the best way all our present difficulty. He gives Christianity the credit and patriotism and all these things to help bring the favor of God upon this land. The interesting thing about Lincoln is that he was highly influenced by Thomas Paine, who was a deist, and Voltaire, and But at the same time, he believed in a type of providence, the doctrine of necessity, the belief in kind of a predestination or determinism, where things were meant to happen the way that God would have them happen. And he spoke often of the influence that God had on him and on this country. And one of my favorite quotes was Lincoln after the Second Battle of Bull Run, where he said, "I have been driven many times upon my knees by the overwhelming conviction that I had nowhere else to go." He was a praying man. And so here he is in this painting, and it's very simple in its depiction of Lincoln kneeling down and pouring out his heart to God. And I can't imagine that he didn't do this, as he said on many occasions, when things seemed hopeless, and he was wondering what he was going to do to preserve the Union. I think that painting Lincoln, for me, is special because I admired the man. He did what was needed to be done, the right thing at the right time. And I see a lot of that in President Trump. And I guess that's why I admire Trump so much. And I've mentioned this before, but when he first got elected, I wasn't sure where this was going. He had made a lot of great promises, but would the man really live up to what he said? And it's only been a couple of years, and Trump is doing everything that he said he would do. And he's made a lot of hard decisions. And I just hope and pray that our country never gets to the point that it was in 1861 when things got heated up and it led to a civil war. Hopefully we can avoid that kind of a scenario. So I hope you've enjoyed this little bit as I've talked about my painting, and in the next video I will do a little bit of painting here, and you can watch me start to lay in the face and these other things. We'll talk to you soon.